Okay, so it is 8:38 on October 5th, and I am gonna call the October meeting to order. Roll call of members, David Larson.
Here.
Tony Munson, and Stacy Klein, and myself. And the rest are absent for the day. I certify that open meeting law requirements have been met with proper posting. We have a 14-item agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Has everyone had a chance to read our September 7th regular meeting minutes? Any corrections or additions?
Motion to approve minutes.
Okay, motion made by Munson to approve.
Second.
Second by Larson. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. So we will get on to item number 6. Mr. Dwayne Snowball will visit with us on our wildlife damage claims program.
All right, is it working now here?
Looks good.
Everybody can hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. So, it's my understanding you guys went to a new format in the sense that my handouts are provided electronically. But before that, after I put that out, and then I read the agenda on the bottom, there's a bunch of new committee members, which is good thing. So I guess before I get into the actual agenda items, I'd like to explain the program, who Wildlife Services is, and how it relates to this committee and stuff like that in the part of the program. So basically, I work for USDA Wildlife Services. We assist counties to administer the damage program, the Wildlife Damage Abatement and Claims Program. It's a statewide program. It's a state program ran through the DNR, but for farmers to be eligible, the county has to administer it, and they can either do it on their own or they can hire Wildlife Services to administer on-farm site visits, stuff like that, and to administer on their behalf. And then there's certain aspects of the committee retains authority and has to vote on certain things, okay? We've been working with Trempealeau County since, I believe, 1997. Currently, we work with 55 of the 72 counties. 2 counties don't participate in the program. And then the other, I guess, 15 would be independent counties. They still hire somebody and do it on their own. Okay, like as I said, in '97 we started working with Trempealeau County. It's worked really well, and basically what the damage programs, it assists farmers with agricultural commercial damage from 6 species. When I first started, it was only 3, I think, and then they added turkeys. Now elk is added and cougar. So basically, the original 3 was deer, bear, and geese. Then they added turkey. And then they added, I think cougar actually got added before the elk did. So there's 6 species. So raccoons aren't covered because as a farmer or landowner, you're not subject to license nor season. If you have a problem, you can take care of those, okay? Wolf is a different thing because Wildlife Services in a number of different things. We're responsible for investigating all depredations or injuries to livestock and or pets or hunting hounds and stuff like that. That's got its own parallel program. Doesn't have anything to do with the county, okay? So what Wildlife Services does is when we get contacted by a farmer, with generally it's deer damage in Trempealeau County, we go and make an on-site visit, see what the damage is, what they're doing, and recommend abatement to minimize that damage. In most cases on ag rotation, if they meet the threshold, it'll be a shooting permit to remove extra antlerless deer. Over the years, when the damage is bad enough, what we do is recommend, and it's warranted, we recommend a permanent fence. So there's only 1 permanent fence in Trempealeau County right now still under contract, Decorah Land Orchard. The other orchards have met their 15-year contractual life, and now they manage it on their own. If they have a problem, they do call us, and we will work with them to make sure the fence is up, and if they have to remove deer. In specialty crops, there might be certain types of temporary type systems. There's a small orchard by Arcadia that we used a Benner type system for the individual, and it worked well. Bear stuff in the county would be mainly commercial beekeepers, and we extensively use electric fence on them because it works, and it works really well. So there's a number of commercial beekeepers that we assist also. Program provides the fencing, they agree to maintain it, and stuff like that. Not much turkey damage that's cyclic. If there's severe winters or something, it'd be more stored feed kind of deal, poking holes and stuff like that. No real goose problems in the county as it sits right now. So that's kind of the program. It's a hunter-funded program. Surcharges on hunting licenses and a portion of the bonus tags, and now the harvest authorizations, or what do they call them? They used to be called the bonus tags, go towards the program. There's no county-funded dollars in it whatsoever. It's just statutorily, it must come through the county so farmers can be eligible for the program. And that's why I'm here today, is to get the stuff that the committee has to vote on and approve, so then we can get it onto the DNR. Is there any other questions on it for the new folks, or something I've missed that you want clarification? Yes, Dave?
Just a question when you're talking about the antlerless permits, et cetera, and all that. Is there any hope of getting more donation sites for harvested deer to be donated? That's been a real issue over in this area. Very few locker plants will even touch them.
That's a great question. What the struggle is with this, and now there's been an added struggle, but once CWD was discovered, disposal cost of the carcass is skyrocketing. What landfills will take them, okay? And then, so that cost goes way up, and the struggle to find somebody to take them. So we've lost. Trempealeau County kind of hit years ago there was between Buffalo and Trempealeau County, they were donating, the most deer in the state by far. And then with Trempealeau County, when we lost Maloney's and Pat's in Arcadia, that dropped. Strum dropped out. And then Indy Locker, I think, tried to do it a little bit. Right now, we only have bushies. The state continues to raise the price per deer up. So a couple of years ago, it went to $80 per deer for non-CWD. If they had to hold the deer, it was $90, waiting for test results to get back. This year, they've raised it to $100 a deer and $110 if the deer have to be held. So if bushies is in Independence, if somebody brings something from a CWD affected area, they have to sign it, and then that deer can be processed, but that has to be held until the test comes back. Otherwise, they don't get paid. So the challenges are that. Now, the other challenge we're running in is, we're trying to get a processor back in La Crosse County, Craig's in Mindoro, and he can't find help, or help that'll stay and work. So I talked to him this week. He said, well, I got two or three new people on. I'll see how it goes. Call me next week, and we're trying to get them on. Dave, where we can find another avenue where we keep contacting folks to see if they're willing to be in, we continue to do that. But those are the struggles. And then costs are higher. DNR is trying to continue to raise the cost to make it worthwhile. So that's the struggle. We're working on it. We continue to work on it. But it's just, ultimately, we talk to them, see what they want to do. And right now, bushies has kind of been the only one in Trempealeau County. I think it was last year, the year before, some said, no, we have enough regular stuff to process that we don't even mess with deer, because you got to shut down, clean up, do deer, and then clean up and go back. So there's some significant obstacles that prevent, other processors from getting in. We'll continue to call every year to try to see if they've changed their mind. And DNR is doing that as well. So,
the only other option I was wondering about, any other source of additional funding that could go out to these, other than that doesn't come. I mean, hunters are pretty much doing their share.
oh yeah.
some other source to increase this price, you know, I've looked at the numbers, you know, I'm familiar with Gunderson's Mondovi, of course, because that's closest to me. You know, and they haven't taken any for a couple of years and don't plan to because they're so busy with everything else.
Right.
And they don't really make any money on this.
Yeah. And that's kind of a county by county. La Crosse County, which I work with as well, they came through their health department and they offer additional $40 to deer up to $4,000. So they budgeted their own line item. You know, Wildlife Services doesn't really get involved in that. We do that, and what they do, they just need the numbers, and then from there, they disperse it to the processors there, up to a max. So outside that, I have not heard of anything, other funding sources for it, okay? So, I'm trying to think if I missed anything. There is?
Laramie Market is brand new.
Who's,
I don't remember. Anybody know the name for the person for Laramie Market?
That's it, Laramie.
Right, but who was the owner?
Kuyaks?
and who
Probably
is it?
Renee would probably be the contact.
What'd you say the first name was first?
Perry Renee.
Perry?
They're brand new, just opened this year.
Okay, I'll check into that. Or have our staff, our office staff do that.
Has
But
Has Jeff Becker at Oliva been approached and asked?
I don't know. They have to be licensed USDA or
I
DAD,
don't know if he's USDA, but he's,
USDA
probably
or
not.
DADCAP, but state license. They have to be licensed, because when this first started out, people were doing it out of their garages and stuff.
yeah.
Where they meant to be helpful, there's health standards that's got to be followed.
Okay.
So, but we'll look into that one,
Okay.
okay?
Well, Pat's was bought out too by a different person.
Pat's in Arcadia?
It's in Whitehall
Pat's.
now.
Whitehall, okay.
Trim, what do you say, trim?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, something, there was an advertisement on the radio between him and Bushies.
Okay. Well, and some decide they'd take trim, but they won't take whole deer, whole carcasses, so, no. So that's kind of the obstacles, but we're working on it because it's a really good program. And for, 5-6 years between Buffalo and Trempealeau County, nobody else was close. It was 800 deer, 900 deer, 600 deer, 700 deer. I think the next closest one was down by Madison. I mean, between Trempealeau and Buffalo County, and then throwing in across, because Gary's used to be in, he did a lot of deer too. Those three were in the top 5. And I figured it out one time. It was like, at that time, close to 20% of all deer donated were coming through these 3 counties. So, but, so basically, yeah, and then I did hand out a sheet that tells you what the farmers there. I handed out to everybody. It's got a colored top there. That's kind of an outline of the program. It's more what farmers get, and stuff like that, the information they need. So I'd encourage you to read through it, and then if you have questions, give me a call. If you want to write down my cell number, I'll give you that. I'm going to start. It's 715-491-5492. And any questions that come up, call it. If you don't, somebody asks you something, it's like, well, I don't know, but I'll check. You give me a call, we'll discuss it, and if I need to call them back, I'll call them back and talk to them as well to explain stuff, okay? You read through something that doesn't make sense, okay? Just give me a call. Spend time, we'll discuss it and, go through stuff and where the program's at and stuff like that. So that it's a good program. It's not a perfect program. It's meant to assist agricultural commercial producers to minimize their losses. Does it account for every cob of corn missing? No, but it does a good job. In fact, nationwide, it's probably one of the most robust programs for helping farmers out there are, as far as a statewide program. So, any questions on that? As far as Wildlife Services, if you've never heard of us before, we deal with a lot of wildlife people conflicts, nuisance conflicts, stuff like that. So it's not just the damage program. We do the nuisance bear in Trempealeau County. If there's nuisance bear problems, bird feeder bears, stuff like that, we work with landowners to address that. If there's livestock depredations and it's unknown what it does, what it is, we go out and investigate all livestock depredations to figure out what occurred. And then we do a bunch of other stuff. We work at airports to make reduce wildlife hazards to the flying public, military bases. We do goose roundups where there's problems. Communities hire us to do goose roundups. We do endangered species work to protect certain endangered species. If we're hired, we do beaver issues and stuff like that. So it's a very diverse thing we do. If it's you got some type of wildlife problem, if we don't do it, we can probably get you in contact with somebody that does do it or get you in the right direction. So there's a bunch of different things that we work with on that level. It's not just wildlife damage and abatement claims program. So, okay. So now to get to the agendas that I sent out. So there's, as I mentioned, there's certain things that the committee, Wildlife Services works on behalf of the committee, and there are certain things we need to bring to you folks to vote on for approvals. Review and approve. And one of the things here is the first thing. It's a calendar year program, so we have to do certain things. We do all the appraisals on the farms, assess the loss, come up with bushels or tons loss and stuff like that, or bushels loss for apples or whatever. And then we have to come in with these prices so you guys can set the prices. Now we're going to do all the work. So my prices, I follow like the normal ag prices from October last year to September this year. It's an average price. Right now the only ones that we need to worry about is corn, soybeans, alfalfa, and alfalfa mix for Trempealeau County. And let me get to the right page here. So with corn, I monitor ag statistics and certain cooperative mills throughout my 4-county area, which is Clark, Jackson, Trempealeau, and La Crosse County, and then an ethanol plant for the corn prices. The corn price is about 120 prices over the year. Take it in the middle of the month. First half is kind of old corn prices, about when they start switching to new corn prices, then we start recording those prices. And so the average came out to 586, with the low being 457 in Fall Creek in October 21, and the high being 8th ethanol in Stanley in April at 731. And so this represents an average. Folks, buy and sell corns at different times during the year. It's not a perfect system, but it's an average. It's defendable, and how we come up with the price. So that average ended up to be 586 for corn. Similar on soybeans, only obviously not the ACE ethanol plant, but basically the low was October 21st again in Fall Creek at 11.15, and the high was at Ag Statistics at 16.10 in June for an average of 13.45. Okay. Hay price a little tougher to come by, but I do monitor Ag Statistics and UW Extension Haymarket report, and the average came out there 170.68 for straight alfalfa and 124.10 for mixed hay. So is there any discussion on those prices?
Any discussion from the committee regarding the prices as presented?
Seems pretty reasonable based on what I've seen.
Okay. So if there's nothing, then we need a motion.
Entertain a motion to approve the prices as presented.
Make a motion to approve.
First, Mr. Munson.
I'll second.
Second, Larson. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
So the other part of the program is once 90% of the harvest is over, we can no longer appraise crops for that calendar year. Now, it's a little early. It's just timing of the meeting. Last year I came back, and if we can do that, that's why I put if applicable here. So more information on the program. There's 3 individuals that are fully eligible for claims. I finished one yesterday. There's 2 left. But basically, last year I think Trempealeau County did December 10th. We can table this and come back in November to get a better idea. It looks like everything is going to come off fairly early this year. Or in the past, I don't know, 5, 6 years, everything's been in December. Just give some room on it. It's up to what the committee wants to do, what you're comfortable with on. If you want to wait, we wait, and I'll come back in November, or if you want to try to set one now. And
I believe I made the motion last year to make it December 10th because it coincides with federal crop insurance deadline.
okay, yep.
Yep.
That's,
That seems
Do it
like something we
December
want to
10th
stick
again.
with.
That's fine with me. Yeah, okay. So then we need a motion to set the 2022 WDC 90% harvest cutoff date as December 10th.
I make that motion.
Stacy, do you want to get in, or do you want me to keep seconding?
I'll second. I know there's a delay.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, now the thing we'll talk about next is the proposed 2023 WDC Trempealeau County budget. Again, there's no county funds in this. It's state funds, and by working with Wildlife Service, there's an allocation from federal funds that goes towards the program. What you'd be voting on is just a state-funded request. By working with Wildlife Services, the federal stuff's just allocated towards the county based on the number of participants and the workload. So we prorate our funding towards every county that we work with in the business in the county. There was increases. We've increased the deer donation based on the cost per deer for processing, so that jumped $2,000 there. And then the administration fee, we've got, DNR gives us a blank, I think it's $5,000, and we just spread that over the counties that have deer donation equitably for the, putting out, sending the contracts out, sending information out, getting the contracts back, the administrative fee. Then the other things that are increasing it this year, we've had increased participation in the program from last year. It's up 30%. And then and this started, unless you work in federal government, we got a big bill last year that we covered. We're switching from APHIS, so it's USDA, APHIS, Wildlife Services, and all our IT stuff came through APHIS. Well, USDA decided, no, we're getting rid of them, we're moving them up to USDA, and we get this big bill from them that says this is for they assign a number to every computer, phone and stuff where you potentially would need IT support, and they just handed us this big bill. And so that's part of the reason it went up too. You don't get a choice, it's like that's what it is. So we worked with our own funding last year, and then we talked to the state about it, and they're okay with us adding it to the county stuff, prorating between that and our other programs. So there's another reason it's increased. So, and then there is the projected COLA coming up in the 4% range. So the increase is, we went from basically, for the county portion of it, we went from about 18.1 to about 25.2 in change as an increase from last year. So about $7,000 up from last year. So that's the reason there's an increase. And then the other portion of the increase is, like I said, we've increased the processing, which the deer donation processing can only be used for that. If they don't process enough deer, it's not used. So, okay. So we're projecting, at least $10,000. If we go short, we'd come back in with a budget amendment to get more funding, okay? So the proposed, with all the increases there, the proposed, where you'd be voting on, the total projected budget for Trempealeau County in 2023 is $35,555.91. The total DNR funding request, which we would be voting on for, would be $32,927.24. So if there's questions on that, I can explain.
Any questions for Dwayne on that?
Just to reiterate, we're talking no county money. This is all in and out money?
All in and out money.
Okay.
Becky?
I will say that we have had to do budget amendments the last 2 years, right around $2,000, $3,000, and they have been really easy to work with. It's all through the WAM system, and we have not been stuck with anything, so.
Okay. Good to know.
So if there's no discussions, then we'd need a motion on
To
that.
approve. Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the budget? say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
So I need some signatures from you, Kellen. And there's, now the other thing is kind of a catch-all I always do is you have other wildlife questions, you've heard, seen stuff, and other questions that come up.
Yes. I'm curious as to what kind of, any interesting activity in the county.
There's an elk or two running around. We did do livestock investigations. Bear stuff early was kind of busy, but nothing crazy. But there is, and that's kind of been the thing, either up down by Arcadia, out north of Whitehall, there's an elk or two running around.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
Jackson County or?
well, more than likely, but there's been some that's taken off from up north and come down too.
Okay.
So
Other than that, it's been pretty.
So somebody had trail cam pictures from, I want to say Pigeon area of elk, untagged.
Yeah. So I need you to sign the date there, Kelly.
Okay.
And like I said, if you have questions, you read through stuff, my number's there, call, especially for everybody. Or if you get a call from a farmer or something.
Anything else with that?
Oh, we get about 4 of these
Oh
here.
boy,
so.
fun stuff.
Sign and date. Feel free to contact me, so
I have a question.
go ahead.
As far as the, like you said, the surcharge on the licensing, I imagine the licensing stats are pretty consistent, but do you see any big drops or increases at times?
One more under there. There's, I think the rifle stuff stays, gun deer stays pretty steady, but there's a big increase in bow and crossbow. So any hunting license, there's a surcharge on it. $2, I think it still is. And then I think patrons a little bit more than that. But it used to be, that all would kind of go to the damage program. I think some of that's being used for some administrative stuff. And then any of the, I'm gonna call them bonus tags because it's easiest, you know, to understand. That $12 used to all come to the program, and now I think $7 comes. But funding wise, it's doing a good job of funding the program statewide. So right now, I think if anything, the gun stuff is probably stable or maybe dropping a little bit, but it's more than compensated for by the increase in bow and crossbow licenses, so.
Along that line, does the, I'll call them free bonus tags, does that we get, you know?
You get
I
two
did-
with or three.
No, I got 6 with my 2 tags, 3 for each county.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, that many given out free, does that affect the number that get purchased? That's where I was going with that.
I haven't looked at the numbers, Dave. Right now, what we're hearing as far as funding goes, it's very stable. Good that way. And that's even, you know, a few years back, or probably more longer than that ago, they started taking other things to fund because the program was self-sufficient.
Okay.
And they started using it for some other things. But right now, the funding's good. I'm sure it's affected some where they used to sell a lot more in the south, you know,
Yeah.
but stuff sold up north a portion comes to the program. So.
That's-
All right, any other questions for Dwayne?
And if not, then I'm gonna sneak off.
That sounds fair. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thanks.
And item number 7 on our agenda is a cost share presentation, or cost share payment request.
Yep, that's okay.
I don't know what you guys decided, but it sounded like from council because this stuff is tied to Chapter 92 and soil and water conservation that the quorum would need to be 5 to.
He was here.
Oh, Rick was here? He
was
said
here till
otherwise?
4.
Okay,
Four is good.
all right.
So you were running on one end of the.
He made it
Because
down.
he said he was in a different department, so,
Oh, whatever, for whatever ability.
all right,
he
whatever.
made here.
Okay, I'm fine.
So, Becky?
All right, so we have a few payments to approve then. The first section is for the Land and Water Resource Management. If we go line by line, we've got Jeremiah Segerstrom, who the contractor there was Next Level. The 70% for the county to pay would be $7,896, and this would be for a manure storage closure over in the township of Hale. The next one would be Ron Halama, Quality Habitat would be the contractor. $29,410.89 would be the 70%. And that is for stream bank protection and riparian buffers in the town of Hale. And then we've got Larry Lakey. The contractor will be Wall and Trucking. $11,228 is the 70%. And that is for stream crossing, waterway systems, and critical area in the town of Gale. The next group down would be the county cost share payments. This is the one that's funded by the county funding itself. This is not a state grant. Judy Egan, working with Larson Excavating. 70% on that one would be $18,035.50 for stream bank protection in the township of Sumner. And then we've got Wayne and Chad Berg working with Hegg Construction for $12,614.52 at the 70% for stream bank protection as well in the town of Preston. And the last two would be the Target Runoff Management, the TRIM grant. So this one would be Toma, and I believe Toma is in Bruce Valley, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that one is 70% is $4,900 for stream bank protection and shoreline protection, and then Kevin Schrader working with Larson Excavating, 70% $3,782.80 for stream crossing in town of Pigeon.
And that's Pigeon, Lower Pigeon Creek.
Yep, Lower Pigeon for the Kevin Schraders.
Okay.
Any questions on these projects or payments?
Hearing none. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Larson,
Second.
second by Klein. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next we have a presentation on conservation practices from Haley. Thank you, Becky.
Okay, I just gotta make sure I get this pulled up here. Look at that, it actually works.
Pretty cool.
Just gonna do that. Why did it skip ahead? There we go. Hide. Well, you're just gonna have to deal with a little bit on the sides there. Okay, so here's just a general overview of the conservation practices that either the county has previously installed or helped pay for, or that we're looking at hopefully starting to do in the near future. There are over 120 NRCS standards that we as a county follow as far as how to design these projects. So that means there's over 120 potential projects out there, different practices. We are just going to scrape the very surface on what we've done. So just wanted to highlight a couple of these here. So the stream bank protection, we do a decent amount of these. So I can give you all of the NRCS standard numbers, but you don't actually need to know them. That's just for the design work and everything like that. So I'm just gonna give kind of like the purpose and then what we're looking for as far as how we design it. So most of these pictures are from within the county. If they are not, I do have that labeled as far as where they have come from. So for the stream bank protection, I'm assuming most of you have probably seen this. So mostly for degrading and slumping stream banks, and we are then using like usually a tillage setback to make sure that people are staying far enough away. The minimum standard is 5 feet, but we are in discussion about potentially increasing that to make sure that we have a little bit more of a buffer in that area to help alleviate that slumping in that areas. Generally, what we design for, and it depends on the stream itself, is the riprap. Sometimes it only goes up halfway on the stream bank, other time it goes all the way to the top. It just depends on the soil that's underneath and how stable that is. And then with DNR permitting, we do have to topsoil and seed over the riprap. I think that was new as of like 2017, 2018. So now we're gonna start seeing for the general permits, topsoil and seeding for all riprap or stream bank protection jobs. So that's gonna be something. It's to help stabilize the rock and have it, just an extra layer of armoring on that. Next we have, just take a second, is stream crossings. We had 2 of those, 2 or 3 this year for stream crossings. So this can also include like a cattle crossing, a machine crossing, crossing of like a grass waterway. It's all underneath the same standard. So essentially a crossing of any kind. And one of the cost share payments that we actually did here was one of those crossings. So this practice is used to help stabilize and kind of alleviate crossing streams and disturbing that bottom soil there, so that you're not stirring up everything. And DNR does not allow just to keep crossing. So they do require some sort of armored crossing across the stream. So we do have calls during the year to get different people if there was a violation, something like that. Then we can do either those concrete panels, which is on the left there, or there is just like breaker rock if it's like a machine crossing. You can also put in a hoof contact, which is a small gravel, but that's up to the landowner, that kind of where they want to go with their crossing. So we work with landowners on all of them, seeing what their end goals are. Next is a grade stabilization structure. So that would be kind of like a dam or an embankment, a dike. They're all essentially the same thing, just different names. And so we have done a couple of these in the past. I know this year we're going to be doing one with NRCS. So we don't have a specific one this year just for our funding and that we designed. So it's something we want to do more of. I know Buffalo County does a ton of these. So if you drive around in Buffalo County, you'll see loads of them. I know there are some out in Trempealeau County as well, even that landowners have put in without any kind of cost sharing. It's just to stabilize the area and allow the water to slow down so that it's not just screaming down the hills and washing out everything. So we want to really start stabilizing, and then really that's holding back the sediment and the water going into our streams and surface waters. So this would be something to look for upstream or, kind of up in the hills to make sure that we're actually slowing down the water before it even gets to our stream systems and erodes even further. So I think this would be a great practice to start really getting more into, just because then we're kind of doing a preemptive measure than dealing with the degraded stream banks and everything like that. So, and reducing sediment in our stream systems. So, next one.
Is there cost, that's at 70% funding then, there's no
Yep,
caps on that?
70% funding. We can do, if there is like an economic hardship, there is then the chance of going a little bit higher on that part of it. It all depends on the funding source that it's coming from. So it could be, I believe we can do it with county cost share and with the land and water money or the soil resource money. I'm not sure about the trim money. I would need to look further into that part of it.
Would this help like some of the phosphorus funding too, trade-offs because of the runoff through the woods where the more phosphorus is coming now from?
It definitely could. We could then model the amount of soil being held back or, reducing erosion and then taking soil samples up, from that soil above that, and then we can show that it is reducing phosphorus. So that's something we could definitely look into for potential MDV funding, or if we can get a municipality to work with the water quality trading, that's definitely something we could work for. So I think it would be a great project, in the future to keep getting on the landscape. So next is the waste storage or waste facility closure. We did do a couple of these this year. I have another one here this fall that's going to be closing. It is to help protect groundwater. If it's leaking, the surface water, it is a health hazard to, humans, animals, everything like that. So it's good to get them closed if they're just sitting as they are. So we don't cost share the removal of the manure that's been sitting in there. So that is something the landowner does have to take care of to begin with. But then once we start closing that, then we can, if we break open, so we have to break open the bottom, dig out some of the soil. If that's contaminated, we do cost share that part of it. So the emptying of it, that's on the landowner on their own. So just as a key note there. But then there are options to either use it as, if it's a area to park things in. Some people have been doing that. It just kind of depends on what the landowner is looking for. But really what we have been doing is kind of where we see here is then just going into a grassed area and allowing it to sit from that standpoint.
Can you use the concrete structure or whatever the main structure is yet for backfill? I mean, you break it up and dig out and then put back
Yep,
in.
we can put the concrete back into that area, so you can leave it, you break it up, leave it in that area, then fill over top of it. So there is that option, does not have to be hauled off site, so. Okay, grass waterways. We have been getting a few more of these. I know I have 3 this year and hoping to get a few more. I know I have a couple applications for them next year as well. So this helps stabilize, soil and keep in a permanent vegetation so that the water quality is better. We're not getting soil eroded. A lot of it is in the farm fields that we're seeing, either the corn, soybean, stuff like that. There are certain standards that they can't be, spraying through there, plowing through it. So there are restrictions on it, but it is to help with that soil erosion and the water quality. Then we have rockline waterway or an outlet. So this year we do have one of them. It will be at the end of a waterway because we had to have a stable outlet. So we're putting a rocklined area so that then it's stabilizing that soil and then the water can get through there. There is, depending on the soil that's on the ground there could be just a rocked waterway versus a grass waterway. So it's kind of depending on slope and the soil on the ground. So depending on what the design ends up being. So
over time, they fill and eventually turn into a grass water. So you've got to clean them out.
you're supposed to clean them out. Really.
How would you go about doing that?
Yeah, it could be adding in a little bit more rock. It could be, digging it out and replacing it. So there is a couple different options. Otherwise, there would be, after our 10-year, we don't, because that's where our operation and maintenance ends. Then it's kind of up to the landowner on which direction they want to go from there. So. Similar to the, grass waterways, just a rock-lined one. We use the outlets for stabilizing for even outside of the grade stabilization structures. So where the pipe is coming out, we might have to put a rocked outlet right there to make sure that, the soil isn't continuously washing away from there. So there are different avenues for the rock-lined outlet, not just a waterway. So heavy use protection area, we've done a few of these in the past. I don't have one currently, but this is this has kind of a great picture for it. It's an area of heavy use either by animals, machinery, stuff like that is either eroding away, ponding water, stuff like that, just making it really difficult. So then we come in and either put in a concrete area, a gravel area, something reinforced so that we're not keeping eroding and sending that soil out of that area. It also helps with water quality. So there's an underlying theme here of erosion, water quality on all of these practices. So this is a great practice if we can get more people. That's why I'm doing this is, getting the knowledge out there of what other practices we can definitely do. So if, outside of barns and stuff like that, we can definitely put in a heavy use protection area for that. And that's, again, 70% cost share. So waste storage facility, pretty self-explanatory. We put a couple in, not this year, but I know in the past. It can be anything from your concrete lined, very large manure storage facilities. It can be a smaller one. It depends on what the farmer is in need of. Generally, this is based off their nutrient management plan. And in order to get a waste storage facility, you need to have a nutrient management plan. So it all goes hand in hand. And then it is based on the capacity and your sizing of your farm. So again, to store the manure so that it's not either running on the ground or, so you don't have to daily haul every single day, stuff like that. So trails and walkways, I know we have one this year. We had one last year. That's the one on the left there, going from barns to, or not even to the barn, but different facilities out to the forage areas, watering systems to help with stabilizing that area and reducing that erosion and making it safer for the crossing of those animals. So, well, decommissioning, I think this is a great practice. We haven't done one now for a couple years, but a unused well is a direct conduit to groundwater. So if things are getting in there, that's going right into our groundwater system. As far as contamination, I know in my previous positions, I've seen anything from mice crawling down in there and falling in, and that's just not very good for our groundwater. And anything from all the insect nests and everything. So it would be a great practice if there's unused wells in this county to start really abandoning them. And we can do a 70% cost share on that. So that would entail cutting off the casing at a certain determining level. It depends on what the landowner wants to use that land for. So if they're going to be cropping over this, we're going to want to cut that casing further down so they don't hit it with their equipment. And then it would be filling it with either bentonite chips, potentially concrete. Usually it's a bentonite mixture. And then topsoiling over top of it and then moving on. So it's a great avenue to keep from that direct conduit to groundwater. So if there's any unused wells, let us know. So nutrient management is our next one. I know that Rick has been working really hard on getting more nutrient management plans in and getting that avenue set forth. There is funding if someone does not have a nutrient management plan, is brand new to the system, that we can cost share that. So it's a great avenue to work with farmers to get their nutrients in, profitable levels and making sure that we're not putting too much on that farm field or anything like that, and making sure we spread at the correct times, because there are certain restrictions that you cannot spread in certain areas or at certain timings. So it all coincides, and some of the practices, you do have to have a nutrient management plan before you can have cost sharing on some of our practices, just like the waste storage facility. So we're trying to work more on getting more nutrient management on the ground. And that coincides with our new cover crop kind of cost sharing. And we started this last year. This year we're doing it again. So there's a flat rate that we will pay, and that is based on the land and water, SEG funds, all of that jazz. They have it set up as to what the rate is and how we can cost share. So we go off of those funding requirements. So we want to see more cover crops in the ground, and we can cost share that. So it's on new acres that are going to be in cover crops, and we have an application online that people can fill out and go through, and we'll get in contact with them to start that process of that cost-sharing payment. So this is the second year. We're still working out any kind of little kinks, but I think last year we worked out a fair number of them. I know other counties are really starting to get through this. So, and in order to get the cover crop funding, you need that nutrient management plan. So again, hand in hand. So another thing that we have been working on is the Bluff Prairie Restoration. So this does not have an NRCS standard. It may fall more underneath the kind of like a habitat restoration, but we generally work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife on this one, and we do a partnership in the cost sharing. So Bluff Prairies are kind of a unique area, and it's not seen all throughout the state of Wisconsin, mostly in the driftless areas where we have these bluffs. And they are disappearing because of the increase in invasive species and the trees not being thinned, or wildfires coming through and destroying those. So we're coming in and having contractors remove certain tree species or shrubs to open that area back up to that Bluff Prairie, because it is a very unique area for wildlife, and there's some endangered species that only are found in Bluff Prairie. So that's why we want to start getting more into them. So on the right picture there, that's one where they're still working on it. You can see the brush piles and everything, just kind of opening it back up. And then on the left, that is, I believe, Brady's Bluff, if I remember correctly. And that was restored to make sure that there's, those endangered species coming in there. So some of the practices, so that's kind of what we've done in the past. I didn't highlight all of them. There are a multitude more, but there are some that we are looking at as a county or as a department that we would like to start, getting more into, and that would be like wetland restorations or wetland improvements. There's different standards, and each one has just a little bit of a nuance. So there's also the wetland creation, so ones that have totally disappeared and will come back in, and we would be then able to pay that 70%. So this helps connect the hydrology in the area, because wetlands are a natural area for either infiltration, for habitat, for everything along that line. So wetlands are a good thing. A lot of people think it's just for mosquitoes, but they're really not. They actually do help the environment and everything like that. So help a lot with the infiltration in our groundwater system. Then next is field borders. I couldn't find anything that we did anything in the past. As far as cost sharing, we might have done it way in the past, but I was kind of looking more recently. I know Pheasants Forever is really starting to push field borders. So Scott Stipetich, he's been kind of a leader in all of this. He'll take fields and show what is profitable and what is not, and then he'll be moving into like a field border or some type of grass mix to make it a little bit more profitable on that end. So we're looking into how we can help with cost sharing and getting field borders in, because it does help improve. Could improve your crop yields. Could then take out those low yielding areas and put it into some type of habitat, stuff like that. Looking into different avenues for those areas that really aren't profitable. It does also help erosion, and keeping a permanent vegetation on those field borders just helps with the water quality and reducing that soil running off the fields, especially in our higher altitudes and our valleys and hills there. It does help capture some of that. So kind of along with that is the vegetative treatment area, or another name is just a buffer or a filter strip, something along that lines. Generally, these are seen along either a, what would I call it? I lost my train of thought here. So like an agricultural waste water system, or feed storage, we would put a permanent vegetative area outside of it to capture that and infiltrate it, so that it cleans that wastewater coming off of it. So it improves the water quality from that area, and something we want to start looking at versus, just letting it run across the ground into our streams and everything like that. So really a great practice that could be starting to installed in our areas. I would have to look a little further into restrictions on harvesting. I think there would be it could be hayed, it could be grazed, but it would have to be a rotational grazing, and we would want a grazing plan on that. You could also just mow it if you really wanted to, but you might as well take something as far as profitability off of that. So there might be further restrictions. I don't have that standard right in front of me, so there is the option. Stacy, did you have a question? Yeah.
Well, actually, I let Verge know that I need to get going for an appointment. So
Gotcha.
I just wanted to check in and see if there's anything left on the agenda that needs to be voted on yet, or how this is going to work.
Joe's report.
Joe's report. Do we want to just get Joe down? I have.
How long do you have, Stacy? Do you have to bug out right away, or?
I could do another maybe 5 minutes.
Okay, we'll see if we can't get Joe down here quick and do the surveyor's report quick.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you think I can just keep
You
going?
can- you can fill
Okay, I
in
have
till
2
Joe gets here.
slides, so.
Yeah, let's-
Next one is stream habitat improvement. I know that NRCS has been doing this, and we want to start working towards that. I know previous committee had approved in, I think it was 2018, that our county cost share funds could be used for habitat improvement, which includes the stream habitat. It could also be used for timber strand improvement and woody vegetation removal, like invasive woody vegetation, herbaceous wood vegetation, stuff like that. So this is something that we're looking into as a department, seeing if there is a way to put in a little bit more stream habitat or help fund some of the activities going on within the county. He'll be right there.
Like one plan, so that's one project per year out of that fund, is that?
So it was just approved that we could cost share that type of project. So there's not a limit on the number we could do. We're in discussions as a department on, kind of how to allocate funding. So we're still in the works on that part of it. So stream habitat, on the left there are root wads, on the right is a weir. And now Joe is here, so.
Okay, so we're gonna switch
Yep.
to Joe. So, Joe, with that, you're on.
Is this on?
Nope, push the
press the little
button.
There we go. You should have in your packet a report dated September 30th of this year pertaining to our maintenance project on our public land survey corners. As you can see from the front page of the report, we worked in Town 22 North, Range 7 West. We had 17 corners scheduled for maintenance, which has been completed. On Town 22-9, we had 19 corners scheduled for maintenance, that also has been completed. And in Town 23-7, we've completed 16 of the 22 corners scheduled for maintenance in this area. You look at the next 2, 3, and 4 pages of the report, you'll see the corner locations that were maintained this period in the 3 separate townships. And directly after that, you'll see the billings and the rates of the surveyors who worked in the area and basically what they were doing at those given days and times. That pretty much finalizes the report if you have any other questions, unless you have other questions.
Do we have any questions for Joe? On his corner maintenance.
That was pretty simple. Do
Just
you have any questions in general?
Just newbie question. How do you determine which point needs maintenance or what? Okay, why did you do 3 in a row here and none over here, or?
That's a good question. When we finished the remonumentation in 2014, we spent, I believe, the next 5 years going back through and maintaining all the corners. Keep in mind, some of these corners were set or remonumented in 1998 through 2014. When we did that, we set up a maintenance schedule rather than just basically maintaining the corners like so many every 5 years, like some counties do. We rated the corners based on what we felt their need of maintenance. So if we had a corner that's buried 2 feet in a cultivated field, well, we don't have a very high rate of maintenance, right? Because it's just not going to be damaged. It's below plow depth. We're confident that won't be a problem. We have some corners that are in the middle of the woods that really don't have decent access with a vehicle, 4-wheeler or anything. Well, those we gave a different rate. Those we gave like a 20-year rate. We had some that are off-road, like maybe the access would be by virtue of a field road or a field or in a corner of a fence where farmers farm up to it. We gave those a rate of 10 years. And then corners in the roads where we have a high likelihood of being disturbed by road construction, maintenance, so on and so forth, we gave them a rate of 5 years. In fact, we have a few corners in roads that are rated every 2 years. And so what you're seeing here is right now, these are corners in the roads. So if you look at closely at the plat book sheet, you'll see for the most part, they are actually in road right-of-ways. We just didn't feel it was appropriate to go visit a corner in the middle of the woods every 5 years, when we felt that there's no reason for it to be determined or to be disturbed.
Okay, yep, it is on a road. Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense. All right, any other questions for Joe? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Yeah.
To
Motion,
approve the report
motion to
and
approve the report, yeah, and I assume the payment.
payment voucher, yes. Yep.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. So,
Any other questions for me or concerns or anything I can help you with as pertaining to my duties? I know I haven't met all of the current board members. Some of you I recognize.
I think sounds like content for now.
Everybody knows what I do?
I do.
Well, if it gets to that point,
And Joe, we do have our newsletter, department newsletter that's going to go out in the next month or so. And Joe wrote a nice article on his duties and everything, so that'll help people understand what he does and what he doesn't do for the public, because we do get requests. He does get all kinds of requests for things he can't do. But look for that article in the newsletter that's coming out in the next month.
I'm sure that you do get some interesting requests.
I do. You could have the meeting for 2 days with some of those requests if you wanted to.
Well, if we get a short agenda, we'll call on you.
Got it. Thank you.
I go back a number of years when you were working Albion, and you did me a favor, but you said it was for county, by locating a fairly remote one in my area, which allowed for coordinations.
You bet. Yeah.
Yep.
We've located approximately public land survey corners in the county. Over that 17-year period, we remonumented and restored 2,400 corners.
Wow.
So it's quite a
lot.
project.
Yes, it is. Well, thank you for your work.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, and so then I think we go back to Haley. And you have to go, Stacy?
Yep. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you for joining.
Yeah, you guys have a good day.
You too.
Oh, I gotta share my screen. Never mind. Well, I'm almost done.
Okay.
I had like one more, so how do I share screen? Okay, so the last one I had on here is the timber or the forest stand improvement. So working with, we met with an NRCS rep, and he actually is from the Ruffed Grouse Society, and he is new to the office in the area, and he wants to start working on forest stand improvement areas. So this would help improve our oak savannas and our hardwoods and improve our forest areas from what he described as kind of a crappy area, which is the invasive species and species that are not as desirable. So it'd be coming in, removing those invasives or the undesirable wood, and then allowing those desirable wood to then grow and get further ahead of the other areas. So on the bottom picture that you can kind of see, it's like a really scrubby forest, and then they would come in and clean it out, allowing for it to open up a little bit more and get more desirable wood in that area. So something we're kind of talking about at this department, seeing if that's something that we want to look a little bit more towards or work with the Rough Grouse Society and kind of partner with them. So we're looking at what other partnerships we can have and who we can kind of work with and have, more practices installed in, on the ground, have our funding go further if we can partner with other areas. So that was pretty much it. Questions, comments, practices you would like to see on the landscape, ones that you would like to not see. Well, I'm open for questions, comments. If you have more you want to know about them, just let me know. Stop in. I can chat for hours. So.
Sure. I'll speak to, I actually like the idea of the last one with cleaning up some of the forest land. I mean, it's something that's very needed. You can find a lot of scrubby areas.
We've got some invasive species coming through that probably cleaned up.
Yep.
Yep, I think it's a common problem.
most definitely. It's a constant battle, though.
Yes, it is, and you aren't gonna be able to forget
By
about it.
accepting this, would you increase eligibility for funding or a new program so you could get different funding, bring more revenue to the department, or no?
It definitely could. I would have to, discuss with the department and Becky and see what other funding sources are out there. If we can partner with, even multiple different entities and we can kind of get a whole coalition together of, different funding sources. We're really looking for different partnerships and how we can branch out and bring more to the county as far as funding and other, entities out there, so.
The other thing that I guess I'd like to see more of, and something you mentioned, would be to develop more of the ponds, sediment. I think it's pretty logical with the amount of big rainfalls to have
Yep.
that surge and slow down things at the top of the watershed as opposed to letting it get down further.
Exactly.
So-
Kind of a preventative measure
Yep.
versus the reactive, so.
Yep. So, sounds good. Anything else from the committee? Otherwise, thank you, Haley.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks, everyone.
Next, we will move on to our county conservationist operations report. Charmaine.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about the Trempealeau Lakes. Again, I know I mentioned it in the last meeting, but I'll give you an update on just kind of like where we're at and how far we progressed with the Trempealeau Lakes. So, again, the reason why we're very interested in the Trempealeau Lakes is that it is very important as a recreational and ecological resource in this county, and it's very unique because lakes in the driftless region are very rare, and it's something that we have in our county, so we want to improve those lakes by reducing the phosphorus and nitrogen loads going into those lakes. And last time I was talking about applying for different grants. So there are two of them. One I have already applied for is a pre-application. It's a Wisconsin DNR surface water grant, and it's specifically for large-scale aquatic invasive species removal. So I've been working with Wisconsin DNR on this, and I wrote up this grant for to remove, chemically remove curly-leaf pondweed in First and Second Lake. That's where we want to start with first. First Lake has about 80 to 90% coverage of curly-leaf pondweed, and Second Lake has about half of that lake covered in curly-leaf pondweed. So this grant is cycle is for 3 years. So I applied for 3 years to have the chemical and also mechanical removal of curly-leaf pondweed, and that deadline was September 15th for the pre-application. And the reason why they want pre-application is more so to just review all the other applications that came in, and then also a biologist will work with our request and also tailor it as well to what their needs are to for this grant. And then once they work with us, then November 15th is the hard deadline to submit the actual grant itself. So initially it's kind of like a rough draft phase, and then it's going to be submitted in like finalized November 15th, and then there the DNR will review those applications. So right now we're just in the, I guess, the review process, waiting to hear back. And also, there's a second grant as well, so you can apply for this anytime. It's a county grant, and you can receive up to $11,000, and that one is more focused on like outreach and education. So we do have the group, the Friends of Trempealeau Lakes, which is still trying to form. This could be a grant that we could see fit for them to want to just promote more of the Trempealeau Lakes, as well as like aquatic invasive species and things like that. And I just kind of backtracking back on that first large-scale grant. So we can use county cost share, so they do accept matching. So I want to mention that too, so we can stretch our dollars further So, and once that grant cycle is done for 3 years, we were planning to apply again. So initially, going back to First Lake, that will most likely take about 10 years to remove the curly leaf pondweed. And then on Second Lake, it would be about 5 years. So we would like to reapply for these grants once they're done and try to get them approved again. So that's more of just like the short-term goals. Then to prevent these, the curly leaf issue again, we want to look at large-scale issues. So that is where we want to work with the local farmers in the area too, with perhaps having cover crops on their fields. There's like the flats right above the lake, so potentially that's how we can reduce like the nitrogen and phosphorus, is by looking at the bigger picture here, work with farmers and try to reduce those nitrogen and phosphorus levels. So right now, just trying to combat the curly leaf pondweed, eventually work with the bigger issue too. Is there any questions with those grants before I move on?
Any questions so far?
Okay. So moving on, we have the tree and shrub online ordering. That will go live on November 1st. So right now, we are still trying to finalize the numbers, the prices for the trees and shrubs, and still waiting back to hear from a nursery so they can give us numbers and we can add that to our online forms. Next, we have the speaking and poster contest. So that is coming up very soon. So this year for the 2023 Wisconsin Land and Water Speaking Contest, the poster's theme is One Water. And the state contest for posters will be held in March at the Wisconsin Land and Water's annual conference. And so we do judge the posters locally, so that would just be by county level, and that will start probably in December. We're still trying to finalize the area speaking contest when they want their contest to start, and that it sounds like it would probably be in the beginning of January. And that is open for K to 12 students. The speaking contest, so this one does not have a specific theme, but the theme has to promote conservation and natural resources, as well as like environmental protection. So that is a very broad theme. So again, both the poster and speaking contests, they compete at the county and area level, and then the first place for each category, or age category, I should say, will compete at the state level in March at the Wisconsin Land and Water's annual conference. And with the speaking contest and poster contest, we as a county would like to have participants, especially for speaking contests, because there's less participants. I think the most was about like 7 or 8 in a year. And that versus poster could be a couple hundred, just because classes usually try to promote that too for the students. But for the speaking contest, we were thinking about having participants to, maybe we will give them hats or shirts, a conservation book. We're discussing about maybe having kind of like a varsity pin too, just because it is a lot of work. And for these students, as well as going out their comfort level to even just want to do public speaking. So I think we really should honor and recognize all the participants, and then first place could receive a trophy or plaque or ribbons, things like that. Also, another thing that is in our near future is the soil and land judging. So that hasn't happened in a couple years due to COVID. There are some area schools that are interested in doing soil judging. So we are looking into that, trying to see what we can do to provide for that. Otherwise, they did mention they would go to Pepin to practice, but we would really like to have them involved in our area and support them too. So just looking at that and just trying to get more schools' interest as well, and let them know that we would like to host a soil and land judging contest for them, and that would take place in the spring. So, yeah.
Sounds good. Once again, a lot on your plate. I'll speak for myself. I'm very excited with the tree and shrub program moving forward online. That is one heck of an accomplishment for our county, and as I understand it, in the state.
Yeah, I think there's maybe one other county doing it online. And I think, is it official what you're doing in March? Your presentation? So Haley and a couple other people in the state are presenting about moving online sales at the state conservation conference. So, so yeah, it is a big deal, and will make it easier for everybody.
Yes, I'm hoping that will ease some of the pressure on staff in the office through the springtime, on top of giving better visibility for our constituents. So, very cool. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, thank you, Charmaine. Next, we'll move on to Mike with our DLM Director Operations Report.
Yeah, a couple items. Yesterday, our solar farm committee met, and in future meetings, we're going to be developing some recommendations and guidelines. We had an excellent presentation by the Public Service Commission yesterday, and I think we might be able to get that on the county website so other people can see it. But it was heavy on the permitting and public participation. So we're going to be kind of developing some recommendations to this committee. And if this committee wants to take those guidelines and recommendations to ordinance form, that'll take place at this committee, not from the solar farm. That's kind of what we discussed. But so hopefully maybe another 2 or 3 meetings and we can kind of wrap this up. So we're meeting generally the first Monday of the month. Any questions on solar farms, that type of stuff?
I'm not sure if this is part of that, but in regard to the email you sent out with the letter you had received, in regard to possible leasing land?
Yeah,
public land?
Yeah, there's 3 different companies out there, and I guess there's somebody who's interested in some of the county land as well. Yeah, and I did find out from Corporation Counsel that the county-owned property, if development were to happen, that should go through property committee.
Okay.
But that understanding may not be out there amongst.
I was just going to comment, though, that the idea of it seems counter to the purpose of the county-owned land. That would be my...
Right. So I just wanted to let that, we got that letter. There's interest there. DLM doesn't have any role in managing those properties. So, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. That is something that potentially could happen. Maybe it won't. I just don't know. But it's just wanted to get that on your radar screen. The budget, we had budget hearings last week, and I think I generally thought it went really well, and it was conversational and constructive, and so I think everything should be fine. I do need to bring stuff on future agenda meetings for those fee increases regarding various land use things, and so you'll be seeing something on future agendas regarding that.
Have you noticed building permits decreasing now a little bit, or no, or maybe not affecting too much yet?
Anecdotally, I would say no, Verge. What do you think? Do you have a sense of any reduction in permits?
No.
But we'll be, what we do, excuse me, at the end of the year, in our annual report, we generate reports and then have the chart of the last 5 years of where permits are, so that'll give us a pretty good sense of things. And so that's one of the things we do end of the year, beginning January, put that together. And last year's report, I think some of those charts really tell a story about development pressures or development activity over the last 5 years. So we will be doing that again. So any questions?
Any questions for Mike? Okay. Any future agenda items besides the fee increases that Mike mentioned that we need to have on our agenda? Anything from the committee? Hearing none. Okay, at this point, if something comes up, obviously reach out to myself or Mike and we will see about adding it. Otherwise, our next meeting date is scheduled for November 2nd and will be 8:30 if that works for everybody okay. So we'll stick with that. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting at 9:59. Thank you, everyone.